The word, the word. Switch the bracelet on. The word, the word. The word, the word. Switch the bracelet on. The word, the word. The word, the word. Switch the bracelet on. The word, the word.
Good evening, welcome along to the Word on Blake 7 with me, Steve Wraith. Delighted to say I've got a full squad tonight. Lynn, Orson Welles, Neil Shearer and Nick Held are with us to review Series B, Episode 2, Shadow. And by now you already know that I do the synopsis at the start, so if you are here watching this podcast, you should know that Shadow was about this. Blake devises a plan to enlist the help of the Terra Nostra, an underground organisation dealing in, amongst other things, the drug Shadow. Blake aims to get the Terra Nostra to support the attempts of the Liberator's crew to undermine the Federation. The Liberator travels to the entertainment satellite Space City, where 3 of the crew negotiate with Largo, a leading Terra Nostran. At first, Largo maintains that he has no contact with the Terra Nostra, but when the crew try to leave, he imprisons them. Beck and Hannah, 2 addicts of the drug Shadow, attempt to steal supplies of the drug from Largo. They find themselves imprisoned with Gan, Avon, Callie. Realising the situation, threatens to destroy part of Space City if the imprisoned crew members are not released. With the help of Beck and Hannah, Gan and Avon escape and release Blake and Jenna, and all 6 return to the Liberator. In the meantime, Villa has contravened direct orders from Blake and left the Liberator to visit Space City, having persuaded Orac to operate the teleport for him. In return, Villa has acceded to Orac's unlikely request to be hidden within the Liberator so that it can get on with a project of its own. Upon returning to the Liberator, Blake and the crew discover the origin of the drug Shadow and set course. En route, Callie happens upon the whereabouts of Orac and collapses under its influence, and when she recovers, she teleports to the planet's surface where, once more, she collapses. The moon discs, which are the source of Shadow, eventually come to Callie's rescue, and she recovers consciousness. At the same time, the Liberator loses power dramatically, and it is found that the power is being drained through Orac, now under alien control. Hannah tries to disconnect Orac and is killed in the process. Callie, in alliance with the moon discs, fights the aliens. While setting explosive devices around the moon discs, Blake and others meet Federation guards and come to the realization that the Federation runs both the moon disc operation and the Terra Nostra. The devices are discharged, effectively wiping out the moon discs. Avon sets small charges within Orac so that should it be tampered with again by an alien telepathic force, the charges will go off at once before any worse damage can be done. So, my synopsis, as always, from Tony Atwood's programme guide, and what other information's in there? This particular episode was transmitted Tuesday, the 16th of January, 1979, written by Chris Boucher. Director was Jonathan Wright Miller. The cast, Beck was played by Carl Howman. Hannah was played by Adrian Burgess. Largo, Derek Smith. The Enforcer, Archie 2. And the Chairman was played by Vernon Dobchev. Great name. That's it from me, because tonight we are trying something slightly different. I'm handing over the reins, or handing over controls of the Liberator to Lynn, who is taking us into pastures unknown. Over to you, Lynn.
Thank you very much, Steve. And it is pastures unknown, isn't it? The first episode not to be written by Terry Nation, the 15th and the first one. And Chris Boucher gets a go, as you say, and boy, did he throw everything at this one. I mean, there are 2 distinct halves to it. There's a selection of interwoven plot threads and so on. There's so much going on that they had to add that 5 minutes of crew chat at the end to explain to everyone what had gone on, which I'm not sure is ever a good sign. This could easily have been 2 stories, at least to me. And I wish he hadn't, in some ways, I wish he hadn't packed quite so much into one. 3 stories, Dave. Yeah, I mean, there's a load in there. But I think having got to go, I guess he wasn't sure how many more he'd get to write. So it's all in here. So since we've had the overall summary, I'm going to give my thoughts in kind of 3 parts. The bits that particularly stood out for me, rather than necessarily everything. And I'll give a gap between each bit, right, for reactions and thoughts from the rest of you, so you won't have to wait too long to remember each bit that you disagree with. I'll give you time in between to put that in.
As if.
As if. I'll be very disappointed if there's not at least something. So on the plot storyline part, so part one, we've got a fairly straightforward storyline for the first half, and an apparently disconnected thread running through it, which we come back to. I think this first half's pretty well constructed. I think it motors along well. It starts straight in on Space City with Largo, with Beck, with Hannah, and already we're dealing with some darker material than usual. In some ways, it seems slightly darker. We've got drugs, we've got extortion. That first scene plays out quite well for me. It gets us right into how this is going to feel. I enjoy the little recording Beck leaves behind. It's kind of silly, but it's also kind of funny. So far, so good. We're in Space City with its bubble domes. I'm not sure it's the best model, the spaceship of a station that we've ever had, but I do think it's kind of cute. It looks sort of toy-like to me. We don't really see any of the interior. That's one thing I thought as well. We don't see any of Villa's much anticipated entertainment. Maybe a good idea. Even Largo, he's sitting there cross-legged in the middle of this room. There's not a chairs or not even some of the Blake 7 white sofas or chairs to play with. So it feels a little bit different there. Something a little unlike the Federation. And then the other piece, I think Carl Howman and Adrian Burgess, I really like them. I'm going to come on to the characters later. But I think they play this pretty well. And that scene where Beck comes back to find Hannah, Petey is dead. Again, you don't get any backstory to that. You just get she told me to look after you all, and there he is dead, as a result of this drug. But and Hannah's kind of drug haze, dead-eyed kind of portrayal. I also I like. Actually, I think it's pretty convincing. So then we're on the Liberator. We get to the Liberator with the crew and the main plot. That's where a Terry episode usually starts, with the crew build-up. And again, a bit of light and shade. Blake is willing to do business with criminals, effectively, which is a classic ends justify the means statement. And I'm not sure that anyone really wants to do this, apart from him. Gan is the most vocal, but no one seems particularly keen, but he's bulldozing on through it as normal. There's a lot of sharp dialogue, which we'd expect from Chris, right? I guess he's writing and then he's script editing himself. So it's all going to go in there. I assume he script edits himself. Actually, I didn't check. One of the best exchanges as well for me is almost thrown away when you get at the first few. So as Blake leaves a protesting Villa behind, saying that he'd only be disappointed, then his reply to, "I'll take that chance," is, "I'd never forgive myself, Villa." And you almost miss it the first time, how dry it is. But I quite liked it. And even Zen is being witty this week, actually, showing Villa a picture, effectively, the view screen of Space City, saying you'd expressed a wish to see what it was like. I think that's probably the Zen's best comedy moment of the whole thing, I suspect. So we've got negotiations going on Space City, and then we start to wonder what's going on with Aurak. There's that little line when Villa threatens to disconnect him. Soon that will be no longer a problem. And you're kind of like, okay, what's that about? Callie started being alien again, but it's all completely disconnected. And I'm like, well, I don't know what's going on there. And at this point, actually, a question here for Dave, just to give you a couple of minutes, but it's hard, I realize, for the rest of us to remember. We're really used to what Aurak is like, okay, from watching him for quite a long time, but this is very early Aurak. He's been in it for an episode and a bit, and I just wondered how he came across in this first section of it. When you start to hear him, were you surprised it was acting oddly? did it just seem one of those other disconnected plot threads? Because we know what Aurak's like, and it sticks out a lot for us.
It's like a different character altogether in this episode, you know, but not the only one, which I'll probably mention later on. But yeah, I think I don't quite understand why that plot line's in the story, to be honest.
It's a good point, actually, and we talk more about it later. But you're right; it seems there to introduce some jeopardy, but wouldn't actually have impacted any of the rest of the story at all if you'd taken it out. Yeah. Exactly. So
it's interesting you mention that. In that it's said that the first write of this story, as it originally was that Aurak didn't play such a large part, and that Callie was actually forced to take Shadow, and it all emanated from there.
Even darker. It's, I guess they rode. Be interesting to know why they rode back from that. Probably just again the whole drugs plot line's main crew. So let's throw in an extra alien and Aurak being weird, which I suppose it came out. Which is and Villa, of course, does get to Space City, which we kind of expected. One little question: if he wasn't wearing the bracelet, then he must have had it very close to him to be talking to Callie, because that's the only way I'm aware of that he would have been able to talk to her. I'm not wearing the bracelet, Callie. I'm still talking. And I also suspect that he'd sampled a lot more than alcohol from the sounds of him. But it was 7 p.m. on a Monday, so I guess I'm going to go there.
It was that audio from him was very creepy. I thought very creepy.
The tone and the whole thing was.
Yes, I'll leave it at that. For reasons of good taste.
I think he was sampling something other than recreational drugs and alcohol. Put it that way.
Yes.
I think he had company.
Yes, I do.
That was definitely the impression I had as well. Yes.
Yes.
So that's another. Again, it's thrown in there. I suppose you make a big deal of Space City. We don't see anything of it, but at least there's a little, cameo of that. But it's Villa, right? And the main plot, we have the jewels and the negotiation, and Blake taking the jewels back from Avon, whose face was a picture when Blake just snaps his fingers and has to hand over the jewels. But it all goes wrong, of course, right? You've got Gan, who I think, we'll come back to this, has a much better role in this episode. But he's the most obvious lookout in the world, exactly as Hannah said. He's standing in the corridor, just looking at this. It was almost bound to go wrong, wasn't it? They turn up with the Terra Nostra, an organisation they've just described in fairly efficient terms. An attempt to hand over these jewels. What's going to happen? You're going to be detained. It's not going to go any other way. And we find out that the Federation runs the Terra Nostra. So doubling down, I guess, on them being the bad guys, right? They're clearly set out that they were bad anyway. Now they're even worse because they've tied all this together. And it's never mentioned again. Sorry, spoilers, Dave, but it's never mentioned again. There are plenty of other things the Federation gets up to, but yeah, this which maybe has some scope wasn't mentioned again. But it was interesting when I put this together. So these are the pieces that I kind of pulled out of that first half of the story. It's fairly straightforward. There are these loads of different scenes with interesting things in, and then it's okay. That didn't work. Callie, actually, I will say, sorry, of course, Callie has her. I love Callie's extraction of them from the base. The threatening control, the control center, is sort of a throwback to her freedom fighter type of persona. Someone's remembered that that she can be a little bit ruthless, and we get telepathy twice, which Terry, of course, gave Callie as a character early on. and then mostly forgot about it or didn't want to use it. And Chris brought it back. And that always made me very pleased. Any telepathy was great. I'm going to watch this. So those are the bits I picked out of that first half, because then we basically got another 2 stories. They've said a couple of things in order on my screen. Neil, what are the other things that came out of that first half for you?
The first half. Okay, most of my notes are just kind of like for the whole thing. So let's Blake's ethics are questionable here, aren't they? Not for the first time. And I think it was you, Dave, last time that we did the podcast said that I don't like Blake in this episode, and it's. I mean, you could not like Blake in this episode, to be honest. I've got a list of things that Blake does or says, or how he's acting, and maybe I'll touch on this a little bit later on because at the end something else comes through again. But you can put Blake over there and go, what's going on with this guy at the moment? So it's a little bit different from the very ethical character of season A, I think. So there's a bit of a harder edge coming into play there. Garner's come in as the crew's ethical advisor, but looks at it. Questioning about the dealings, etc. But what we find out later on in the episode as well is that his limiter seems to have been forgotten again.
Oh yeah.
So that's gone. But I think on a generic point, it's Chris Broucher's first script, and he's like the guy who's got let loose in the toy shop, if you ask me, and has thrown every plot line he can into this. And I can't help feeling every time, and I've watched this episode a few times, I can't help feeling every time, have I missed something? Because there's so much going on. And I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. Bearing in mind, if you're doing rewatches, it's possibly a good thing. But bearing in mind, we're back in 1979 now, and you watch something once, then as screened, that's probably not a good thing. So you mentioned, Chris Broucher was script editor, so he's editing his own script. I'm not really sure that's a great idea either, to be fair. So that's my main takeouts from part one. Apart from the sparsity of A, people, and B, furniture in the Terra Nostra.
Much furniture.
There's nobody there and there's no furniture there. So I look at that a bit and go, really? It doesn't look much like a space city to me. I do think that, Lynn, I agree with you. It's a big miss that we didn't see something else there.
Just something.
Yeah.
It's no Freedom City, is it? Which might also be a good thing. That's for later this series, Dave. I won't.
They're similar concepts, aren't they?
Totally.
Yeah.
Nick, how about you? Sorry, there was a pause.
I liked the concept of this criminal organization in the future. I thought it was a good idea. And whilst we still got Space City, I imagine that if Terry had written this episode, we'd have had Space Mafia as well. But some of the dialogue was cracking in, especially in the early part. There's some great verbal interchanges. And I like the fact that Chris had named the lead baddie in the early part, Largo, who was James Bond's arch villain in From Russia with Love. If that hadn't occurred to anybody. But yeah, I thought it was good. I think like the first half of the episode is really good. I really enjoyed it. I thought Beck and Hannah were two great characters as well.
So, Dave.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah. We've talked a bit about Aurak, but yeah, how this part of it in particular, it's what we thought, I guess, would be the whole story, when you're partway through it.
Yeah. I don't really understand why Blake's doing what he's doing in the first place. So straight away, it doesn't make a lot of sense from that point of view. There's too much going on in the whole episode. I've only watched it today, and like Neil said, you just felt as if you nodded off for a minute. I had to keep winding back, and I could have done with, and I don't do it, but I could have done with cheating and reading the synopsis, because I found it quite difficult to follow. But I don't do that. I watch them live for me now, and that's it. So there was an awful lot going on, and ultimately, I think it's probably spoiled what would have been an excellent episode. I thought, great direction, great dialogue, but I don't understand why Blake did what he did. And in the first part, the storylines that aren't followed, you don't see Villa going off to the what's it called again? the spaceship.
Space City.
Just Space City. Yeah. There wasn't time to fit that in, I guess.
Well, no, but there's other things. But if they sort of trimmed down the threads of storylines, you could have seen what was going on. So I found it a little bit confusing, but good dialogue. And I think the first part would have been enough for a full episode, to be honest. The Aurak thing, I don't know why that had to be in this episode at all. I just don't know. But there you go.
That's completely odd.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks. I mean, Steve, you've, I don't know how many times you've watched this sort of, obviously watching it originally, and is it one you come back to?
No, I can't stand this episode. I was actually dreading this. And Dave, I thought Dave was going to tell you before I even had a chance to speak, because I've been telling him how I haven't been big in this episode up, believe you me. And it was, for me, it was every bit as bad as I remember it. It's not one of my favourites. And I think it's a wasted opportunity with this episode. I thought this episode could have been so good. But too many plot lines, I think, and I think everyone's really said that. It's too many plot lines, and it could have concentrated on one. I didn't like the name Terra Nostra. Look, it's a Cosa Nostra, Terra Nostra. Could have been a bit more original than that. The Largo thing, yeah, exactly. Largo, I like it. I didn't know. I've never watched that Bond film for years, but that's quite good. Nice little tip of the wink. I like that kind of thing. I love the telekinesis being back in it, which was never massively used, and I can see pros and cons of using it and not using it. But I agree with you, Lynn. I think it was great to see that being used. This whole idea and concept of an alien taking over either one of the crew members or Aurak or Zen. I think, looking back on Blake 7 as a whole, is overused now when I look at it. But I think, it's a repetitive storyline. And I think that comes essentially with the fact that we don't have continuity with script writers and directors, and that's going to happen. That is going to happen, of course. But positives from this, I thought, with the exception of the costumes, I thought the guest actors in this were really good. I thought the two addicts, one of course played by the wonderful Carl Howman, I thought there were really good performances. Let down by the costumes. I hated the costumes. When I made the notes, I mean the Terra Nostra, I've described them as Victorian Nazis, because it just had me as they really just didn't come across. It looked like they collected something from a Victorian BBC drama and Secret Army and mashed them together with something from Up Pompeii, with the drug addicts. I hated the costumes, and of course that just doesn't make it believable. It just didn't make it believable for me. So I just think they were let down. And this thing with Series B now, already in the first 2 episodes, we have to have the villains doing something with their hands. If they're not touching something cylindrical, they're moving things around. Like it's not my favorite episode, and I could really hammer this quite a bit, but I'm not. I hammered it quite a bit last week as well, and I'm realizing how much I dislike Series B. I think on rewatching it. Again, I praised the effects last week, and with the exception of the stars, we had the stars again, which are literally it's just a set of lights which were on a black display, which they probably hit with a light switch, which I didn't like. And I thought Space City was horrendous. I thought that approach by the Liberator to Space City, when you think about what we had last week, I just thought it didn't look as good. I didn't think the model work was as good in the second week. So, all in all, in this first half, I'm already disappointed before we get to the back end of the episode. But yeah, I'm not a fan, as you can tell, Lynn.
I can tell. Wow. Okay. I'm actually quite glad almost I got you last. Sorry, Dave.
He's turning to Nasty Nick.
Yes. A bit of a kind of, yeah, exactly.
It was Nick last episode. But of course,
Yeah, Nick's looking happy this week. He's not going to be giving it a low mark.
I think so. Well, all right. Let's tackle part two then, because part two just feels if we'd had this random thread in the first half plus a storyline, as you say, that could have done 50 minutes, we're all over the place in the second half. Okay, so Blake again from this odd kind of dealing with criminals and terrorists, and this doesn't feel like him. So, well, that hasn't worked. We'll go blow something up, which is what he'll do, reasonably often. But you can sort of understand. Okay, they've worked out where Shadow is coming from, although, as Avon rightly says, pretty easily. If the Federation is protesting that this is the biggest threat, and yet we've just analysed the moon disk and gone, yeah, there it is. Analyze Shadow and said this is what's doing it. But fair enough, they could do some damage by either threatening to blow it up. Fine. But then we start getting the really weird piece as well. And as you say, we've got this big bad alternate dimension alien. It's shaped really vaguely via these little bits and pieces you get all the way through the rest of the episode. And is dealt with relatively swiftly. It's almost not there at all, except for Aurak acting weirdly. And that just feels very strange to me. Again, it's either worth a longer treatment or getting rid of altogether. And it does, foreshadow later alien episodes with Callie, maybe. And this is what you talked about, Neil, about them having that alternate plot line. They play with this a couple more times at least, actually, thinking about it. So yes, it's the first one of those. I suppose a nice contrast to that is that it's a different alien, if you like, life form, the moon discs, that actually save Callie and therefore the rest of us, which I suppose is quite a good kind of play off, if you like. I got huge 60s Star Trek vibes from the moon discs. I don't know about anyone else. Both the moon discs, the planet itself, you could see James T. Kirk on a planet like that with moon discs every single time. And I wasn't quite sure about needing to change into pajamas to go to that very hot planet. There's all, I don't know, it just seemed exactly just like that. You're well set, Dave. It produced more great dialogue. As I said, there's no shortage of great sets of dialogue through these. But yeah, we tried to blow things up. We've got the alien, we've got the grid effects. You talked about special effects as well. The grid effects for Aurak and Callie stuck inside Aurak. It was a tiny bit Matrix, a tiny bit Tron, but all with a 70s Blake 7 budget. So it kind of, I know, I thought I'd get there first, Dave. I suppose it adds to the slightly unsettling nature of it, but maybe unintentionally from how odd those graphics and those special effects are. I think the piece at the end, we talked about the characterization again, Hannah trying to disconnect Aurak and killing herself or dying anyway. And I thought it was Blake actually when I'd rewatched, and then I rewatched it again. I think it was Avon. I said, well, she was dying anyway, which even for Avon is a singularly cold line. True, but almost certainly didn't need saying. I found it. I watching it now. I had the whole of the second half was largely a surprise to me because it's a long time since I'd watched Shadow, and because it's so muddled, I couldn't quite remember at all what order things went in, or quite what happened, except that Callie ended up with a moon disc at the end. It's and I still had to watch it another couple of times to say to work out what was happening. I'm going to say, this is going to sound strange when I say it. Overall, I like Shadow, even though I've just pulled half of it apart. It's almost exactly the opposite to you, Steve. I think maybe it's despite all the things that we're talking about. I like the fact that it's, I suppose I like the fact it's different. And maybe that's just having as simple as having a different writer from the one for all of the previous 14. I like the fact it looks a bit different. I like the fact that some of the characters are not behaving necessarily in the way they have been, but are being developed more. Everybody has a part to play. I'm going to come back to look at those. And that's something that Terry struggled with, certainly in the second half of the first series, I think, was finding enough and something meaningful for everyone to do without it looking awkward. But Lordy, yeah, they needed those last few minutes to explain to everyone what had happened. Because on a single watch through, as you say, you didn't have a hope. So at the risk of this, I'll go the other way round. Steve, part 2?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, set it up for us.
Exactly. I mean, what's that, Dave?
Steady on, you'll get letters.
I will do, yeah. I mean, part 2, yeah, it was rushed at the end because that had so many loose ends to tie up, and again, I was disappointed. The interesting stuff, I had to double check this, but when Callie teleports down to the surface, she's got a completely different hairstyle to the one that she has when she leaves the ship, and that's down to the fact that
The darkness is a hairdresser. You didn't know that, did you?
Well, it's a strange situation. She actually, in between the 2 days that she did this scene, she went and got a haircut, which is a classic. Jan Chappell, usually the consummate professional, made a major faux pas, which caused an absolute nightmare on set. I loved David Maloney's explanation of this. He says, "Well, a teleport plays havoc with hair." But anyway, that was she teleports down. She goes running around like a wild woman, and then collapses, and then all these discs, which are being pulled along on a bit of string, all start moving towards her. Another interesting little fact from this part of the show, it was persisting with rain. When they were filming this, so they were constantly having to go out and reshoot. It took an age to film this in the sandpit in Wareham and Dorset. So it was, it was an episode, I guess, filled with lots of issues and problems. But I felt it was rushed. I didn't like the fight scenes were slightly better there than they were in previous episodes at the sandpit. But I mean, rewinding back, just that one where was it Largo who hits Jenna, a completely unnecessary slap. I have to go back through my notes, but I think it was early in the episode where he hits her for no apparent reason, and it almost knocks her off her feet when it was pathetic, really. But the fight scenes on the planet were quite good. I thought they were quite good. I made the note about the clothes that they wore. I'm not sure why they chose to wear white, but it's supposed to be a really hot planet. They went down there, and yeah, fair enough, you're not going to wear space suits, etc. But I just felt that the wardrobe was a bit of a malfunction down there. I also, this whole Aurak thing where Callie's getting put into this into the box, etc. They were trying to be really clever with it and a little bit funky. I guess back in the 70s, it probably looked great, and it was quite eerie. But I just didn't quite get that. I just thought there was just too much of that. So I wasn't overly impressed with that. Oh yes, the desk on the Liberator. Towards the end of the episode as well, where he gets Carl Howman's character to press the button I mean,
Yeah.
that was the worst bit of set I have ever seen in Blake 7, and I've never seen that before. It's literally, it looks like paper. It's not even plastic. It looks as if it was chucked in at the end, and I didn't even rewind it to have a look at it because it was awful. I didn't like the end. I thought the end, after everything we've been through, we're stuck with him on the ship and go on, you can press the button kind of thing, which he does, and then that's the end. And I didn't like it. It's not my favorite episode, and I just thought it bizarre. The other thing as well with the Terra Nostra, great to see spiders are still alive in the future.
Yes.
That was the other thing.
He's a big baddie, isn't he? He keeps a big bad spider.
I mean, all it was missing was the cat. It was just missing. It was just missing the. That's all we're missing. The cat.
Largo should have had a cat, and he
should have done.
White.
But yes, I'm honestly, I know anyone listening to this. I think this is the first time in all the reviews that I've not enjoyed any of it. Really, I've really struggled with it. I'm making a mental note never to watch it again. But then when the Blu-ray comes out, I'm going to have to watch it to see if it's any better. So thanks, Lynn.
Thank you.
Did
Steve.
you not like it, Steve?
No.
Didn't like it. Yeah, the end is interesting, isn't it? Because Blake says, "I'll give you 3 years,
3 years,
and then I'll come back and see how you're doing."
Yeah.
He never ever goes back. But that's we've had at least a couple more of them. I'm pretty sure he.
Well, Beck got a job as a decorator, so you know.
Well, exactly. He'll be fine.
Got to do it, and then do an advert for cleaning product.
Yes. So it's so where are we?
Is it me?
Going back. Yeah. Dave, it's you. I think as we're going backwards.
Yes. Steve's gone on so long. I don't know what part 2 is and where we finished part 1, but
we're off to blow things up.
Generally, there was so much going on and so many loose threads, and then the end of the episode was like a Scooby-Doo. They just sum it all up. It was the old guy in the ghost train and blah blah blah. Yeah. So it just, I don't know. I don't know how it got signed off. To be honest, there was so much going on, and then somebody must have looked at the stopwatch and said, "Christ, we better wind this up, and we'll just tell the story at the end, just to clarify everything," which sort of clarified it. But I didn't know what I was watching this afternoon. I had to keep winding backwards and forwards, and in the end, I just gave up. And it's a shame because there's so much good stuff in this episode. Yeah. I don't agree with Steve. I think there's a lot of good stuff in here. There's just too much of it. It needed editing down, and it needed a bit of logic to it, I don't even understand that thing at the end where you press the button to destroy. I mean, what was that about? What was the concept behind they could press this button to destroy the president's garden? I mean,
so they posted all those little.
Oh, sorry, right. Yeah.
Yeah. So which are delayed. Yeah, explosives, timed explosives.
I've got you now. Oh, yeah. You see, it's too much. It's above my pay grade, this, I must say, this episode. But what I wanted to mention as well, because I didn't mention it earlier, in terms of different characters, this was possibly the best performance by Garn. And he was a totally different character in this. He was assertive. Yeah. He had morals. He was quite aggressive with Blake. And he delivered his lines well, and I thought he was a different character altogether, So there is a sense watching this episode. It is totally different from series 1. I thought the lighting was better. I thought the costumes were better. I liked the light stuff on, which is why I'm wearing this on the planet, because it was a hot planet. I even thought the makeup was better. Everybody looked healthier, Everybody seemed to have a bit of a tan about them. So the production values were great. There was just too much story for me. And I think we're probably all agreeing on that, aren't we?
Yeah.
To a degree. Except Steve, who hates everything. So he's going to get the letters that Nick got last time round. He's living under police protection at the moment after last night's score. So, but never mind. So it could have been fantastic. Threads of it were fantastic, but there was too much going on.
Yeah.
We didn't even see the Space City, which would have been great. We didn't see any of that. So lots of missed opportunities, lots of muddling plot lines. That's about it.
Definitely. Thank you. Nick,
Yeah, I'd largely echo what Dave said there. I thought the mafia plot line was good and enjoyed that, and the alien trying to bridge from another universe or wherever he was coming from was just unnecessary. They didn't need to do it. I thought the bit where Callie gets trapped by Aurak and put in this little box or whatever, that's copied again in Doctor Who a few years later. Tegan gets caught on the planet Kinder, and it didn't work there either. It was just yeah. It was just it veered into which I think I've mentioned before. It veered into fantasy for me rather than sci-fi, and I'm not into fantasy.
I was going to ask you about that. I forgot. Yes, you don't like
so I just thought it was an unnecessary plot line in a otherwise good episode, and I agree with what Dave was saying about Gan there, and he was very much a different character, and in the past, in previous episodes, he's been very much Blake's puppy dog, doing anything he says, and this time he's standing up to him and arguing against him, and you should have had more of that. Really, you should, at least Chris Boucher gave him something to do that was animated him, as opposed to just being this sort of unanimated gorilla.
Yep.
But yeah, I liked the episode, barring the messiness of the latter bit. If you'd cut that out, it would have been a cracking one for me. But it was dragged down by the fantasy element and the complications, like that whole exposition scene at the end.
Yeah.
If you've got to have one of them, it tells you something's gone wrong. We should just be able to decipher it for ourselves. You shouldn't have to have this scene where it's explained to you. But, hey ho.
Yeah. Neil.
Helter Skelter, isn't it? Helter Skelter. It's non-stop this second half, and you're not quite sure what you're watching, what you're looking at, what you're trying to decipher from what's going on. Like I said initially, that the whole fantasy element about the darkness coming into Aurak wasn't meant to originally have been in there, so that might have been a late addition, I don't know. But it just doesn't work for me at all, and you could easily leave that out and let the other bits breathe, if you want to put it that way, and have a bit more space. So there's that to me. And how did it get passed? Well, I can only think that it got signed off because Chris Boucher was marking his own homework to an extent, being script editor and writer. So that's possibly how. But we're going to talk about characters in a little bit, so I'm not going to go into characters here because I've got a few things jotted down here. But something that comes up later was introduced here, and that is this idea of a class system in the Blake 7 universe was brought up for the first time here, where they talk about Blake being an alpha, and Villa, I was a delta service grade or whatever he says, which we learn a little bit more about. I'm not going to do spoilers later on as to why he was that, but that was a little bit of universe building there. And I also like the bit where Blake just says, and it's the thing about Federation total control and someone or an organization having total control. So it just stands to reason, and it's logical that he says to have total control, you must control totally both sides of the law. So that is why the Federation, who are in control of the Terra Nostra, on both sides of what they deem to be the law there as well. So I also found that quite interesting there as well, to peel that out. So I took that out from it as well. So quite two broad concepts there, like amongst all the chaos came through for me. So
thank you. Yeah, I mean, so that's, we could probably, we could talk for another hour about the pieces in those plot lines, but probably not say lots more than the fact it was muddled. But yes, characters, and we've all talked about different parts of it. But every main cast character is is drawn well, I think, in this. Well, I say well, is drawn in a substantial way. We've talked about Blake being actually quite dark in the way that his morals, if you like, or his willingness to do things in pursuit of this destruction of the Federation. Seems like he is, it's bordering on the zealot already. He's prepared to do whatever it takes. This is justified because it may destroy the Federation, and that's it. Doesn't matter what else. And therefore, getting Gan to stand up to him, I think, was a nice piece of writing from Chris. Jenna's probably the one who has, in some ways, Villa plays increasingly Villa. Jenna probably has the least here, but she's still very instrumental because it's her friend Largo, except not so much friend, but the person who, in effect, meant that she got arrested and was on her way to Cygnus Alpha. So again, for Blake to say, no, you have to go and find him, we're going to deal with him, isn't that great either. But at least she gets that part to the storyline as well, and she probably gets the least of all of this, and it's a lot more than someone like Gan has had in half of the other episodes we've had so far. Steve, you mentioned Beck and Hannah, and I think I did as well. I just think they were really good characters and well played. I thought they're actually sort of cleverer or more insightful than you immediately think from some of the dialogue and what they were doing. But I think they worked really well. I think they were very believable.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think Carl Howman's performance was really good. I mean, I guess in another way, he probably could have been one of those kind of permanent characters. He gave a really good performance. He was a different dimension. He could have been a crew member. It certainly could have been. But yeah, it was a very Star Trek ending. Dave called it Scooby-Doo, but when I think about it more, that kind of ending used to happen on the original Star Treks, where they'd be like on the bridge and looking out and talking to somebody who was a guest actor, and then having a little laugh at the end about whatever they'd just been through, So maybe that was like a tip to the old Star Trek, who knows? But he was great. I mean, it was a good week for guest actors. There were some really good performances. I couldn't deny that at all. I think there were some really good performances. I just think, unfortunately, because of the confusing storyline and a few of the problems that I've already mentioned, I think it was for me anyway. It wasn't one of the best episodes. But yeah, Carl Howman for me by far, the best guest actor on this one, and I agree with Dave as well. David Jackson's performance as Gan, he had a hell of a lot to do, and he did it a lot better and did it well. And there was a bit of character development by Chris Boucher for David Jackson's character, which I'm sure he was grateful of.
Yeah, it should have been. Other character thoughts. Neil, you'd said that you had a couple more, so
yeah, it's interesting that Jenna, as we know, had previous dealings with this Largo and the Terra Nostra, and there's something that is mentioned there about her being arrested or being on the London, I think. So is it that, go back to this concept of the Federation controlling both sides of the law, did she actually get arrested because she wouldn't do what the Terra Nostra wanted, and therefore not what the Federation wanted, and so she was arrested because they knew she was a smuggler, because obviously they were dealing with her. She said, I'm not taking drugs, which I assume was the ethical reason that she didn't do it, and then they arrested her for being a smuggler. So
that was my reading.
Yeah, I find that quite interesting, that's the both sides of the law thing and the control element.
You've just added the storyline there, Neil. We didn't need that. You've just added another thread.
Sorry, I see too much into characters. It's the penance of writing myself. I can't help it. Blake, I've already touched on Blake. I think that he's just not very nice in this episode, and not someone that he's turned to idealism here, I think, in a rather bad way. So I don't like much of Blake's character development in this episode. It's great that Carly gets an outing here, and she's very central to this episode. Even though I think there's a little bit of not knowing which part of the Cali that Chris wants to pick up and use. So is it the freedom fighter bit, which we see when she's zapping the ship out of the sky when they come up for the Liberator, or is it the telepathy bit? I'll put my teeth in.
All of it. All of it.
Yeah, all of it, all at once and all over the place, unfortunately. So that's just another thing about the script. I did mention earlier that Blake's obsession with Earth is coming back in, and I mentioned in Redemption that there's a parallel between what he said at the end of The Way Back and at the end of Redemption, and now he's on about all he cares about is Earth. He's interested in any other worlds. That's what he says. So this obsession with Earth is coming through again, which turns into an obsession for something else throughout the season. I'm not going to do spoilers, but linked to the Federation and Earth anyway. So we get Jenna, we get Blake, we get Villa just being Villa, frankly. But we do get to learn that he likes a drink in this one more than that's the first time that we've learned that, I think, unless I've got that wrong. We've got Callie. Avon seems to be there to deliver sarcastic lines and put Villa down, and not
Works
much
for me.
else. Yeah, but not much else in this episode really, which perhaps is a refreshing change because it had become a lot about Avon Blake. So to give the other characters a go there is pretty good. Aurak, I don't know. I mean, certainly if I was in charge and this box had come on and caused the chaos that he seems to have caused in the first 2 episodes of Series B, I probably would have thrown him in the airlock, to be honest. But there we are.
Too valuable, but yeah.
Yeah, and I agree that Beck and Hannah, as far as secondary characters go, were well done and well played, and particularly I think Carl Hellman is Beck. Although I can't remember the actress's name who played Hannah.
Adrian Burgess.
Yeah, she did fill that role, pretty
That was
well.
really good.
She was actually in The Sunmakers with Michael Keaton as well. There we are.
There we go. Oh, Nick's got that one as well.
Oh, sorry.
Cool. Okay.
That's all right.
So Tom, Nick, any other character pickups on that?
I liked. Oh, he wasn't in it that much. I liked Vernon Dobchev as the head man, Largo's boss.
Chairman.
Chairman.
Yeah.
Spider-Man.
I thought he did a good job. I liked him. His assets are yours.
That was a nice line. Exactly. Dispose of the body. His assets are yours. It's just
I thought that was cool.
But it also gives you that idea that everything is centrally controlled there, and everyone's got their
yes, that's true. Yeah,
It was probably off out for lunch with Servalan afterwards.
Yeah.
nice.
But no, I thought he was good. I thought the enforcer dude was quite good as well. Ultimately inherited those assets, and I think of the guest actors, I thought the guy playing Largo was probably the weakest of them. But he was all right. But the others were so good. I thought he was a bit diminished to them being.
He's a bit. I'm evil.
Yeah, it was a little bit by comparison. A bunch of good guest stars really, and everyone got all the main crew got, barring Avon, as I think it was Neil just mentioned, got something pretty decent to do.
Cool. Dave.
Yes.
Anything to add?
I think in general, all the acting was a lot sharper and there was a lot more energy to everybody's performance than I'd seen for quite a while. It just felt different. It felt as if everybody was on their game. I don't know, how to explain that better than that. Just watching it through, everybody seemed to be really focused, and the acting seemed better in general. Gan, I've already mentioned, I thought he was outstanding in a totally different character. Largo, which Nick's just mentioned, I found him extremely hammy and a pantomime villain, but I really enjoyed his performance at the same time.
Yeah, it somehow worked, didn't it? Yeah.
Every word was deliciously coming off his lips. He got the most out of every syllable. So I can't really decide whether it was excellent acting or hammy acting, but I just found him very enjoyable. So I know what you mean, but I just found him enjoyable to watch. And that's about it. I think we've covered everything from my point of view. I thought everybody was good in it, really.
Yeah.
So maybe what you mentioned there, Dave, interestingly, the energy and the way every character
Yeah.
came across, perhaps a bit of direction there.
Yeah.
Jonathan Wright Miller, it's his first and only. No, he didn't.
Shadow. No, this is Shadow. Oh, what's the other one he did?
He did another one. It wasn't Horizon, was it?
It is Horizon.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so he only does a couple. Yeah, it could well have been that. So I thought it was, as I said, there was a hell of a lot to fit in, and he did direct his way through it all. I mean, I'm not sure how much of the confusion you could have removed given the script, right? So
Yeah, imagine being that director.
Gone are the days when they had to fit in, walking slowly down a corridor for a minute to pad it out. This was exactly the opposite.
I always say the director's the boss, and if the script's too cluttered, he should be able to decision to cut it out. So I'll blame the director for everything.
Might have been tricky in this case, right? Yeah,
might have been, yeah. Especially if you're only doing an odd episode, yeah, you don't have the control there.
So we're rolling on towards the hour. Got my eye on the clock as well, Steve. Just thinking, any other character beats from you, Steve, or should we go to ratings at this point? I think.
Yeah, I think go to ratings. I just think Carl Howman was the best actor in it for me, visiting actor, if you like. And yeah, I mean, I'm going to give David Jackson it because he never gets anything at all. I think David Jackson was good in this episode, and he gave Gan some character. He was given something to do, and overall, I think David Jackson did very well in this. The Largo character, I agree, very pantomime villainous, but I think half of that was the costume. I think he felt he was having to do it because he was wearing like Moriarty's frills,
smoking jacket. Yeah.
I was looking for my old velvet jacket from the 1970s.
I did suggest that Dave could wear something from his wardrobe tonight to dress it.
This is down on the planet outfit.
Gone the other way, see? Oh.
Yeah, you must still have me velvet jacket, Steve, because I can't find it in my wardrobes.
I must have, yes.
You must still have it, along with a bottle green frock, but that's another story.
Wow. Damn, I've got a velvet jacket as well. I missed a trick.
I'm going to wear that on the 8th of November.
All right.
Sounds like they've been at Space City, the pair of them.
As long as they're not transmitting like Villa, then.
Well, exactly. So which way are we going to go with these marks? Okay. Neil, I'll start with you. What did you give Shadow as a rating?
I mean, I can't deny that I watched this episode and it goes quickly because it is that kind of episode. It's got its plot holes. It's also got the interesting things that I mentioned in it as well. So I'm going to give it a 7.
Yeah, 7. Nick, how about you?
I was sort of torn between 6 and 7. It would have been higher if it hadn't been for the unnecessary plot line. If it had just been the mafia thing, it would have been easily an 8. I'll go 6. I'll go 6.
Thank you. I've just reminded of who
Okay,
is
unnecessary.
Dave, what are you giving Shadow?
Well, I'm giving it a 7.
See?
I'm giving it a 7, despite its flaws.
Despite its flaws. Excellent. Was it 7 last week as well for Redemption?
No, it was
8 last week.
Was 8?
I gave 8 last week.
I do beg your pardon. Wow. Okay. Fantastic.
So, 7, but it could have been a 9 if it had been edited properly with a
Yeah.
There he is. There's a velvet jacket.
There he is.
He looks like Victor Benetti there.
So, Steve, what's your score given everything that you said at the start? Ooh.
Percent? That's
5%. That's we well, even
Yeah.
rounding would give you 1 actually, wouldn't it? Technically, 0.1. No,
I just
0.1.
sort of come up with a gimmick today. No, I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. It was just flawed in so many places this episode for me, and just rushed at the end. Good performances, like I say, acting performances from most people in this one, and good visiting cast. I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10.
I'll change mine to 7 then, because I didn't hate it and Steve hated it.
No way.
Steve is Craig Revel Horwood for today. So
Wow. Yes, exactly. Very topical. So that's interesting. I said I actually, despite all its flaws, I really enjoy watching Shadow. I love the shift to Boucher, the shift in tone that he brought, the emphasis on drawing each character, giving them attention. He shouldn't have stuffed so much in here. But I'm going slightly out on a limb. I'm still going to give it an 8, which it probably doesn't deserve. But for those reasons, I'm going to say that because I enjoy watching it, and I've watched a few times this week to prepare for this. So yeah, I
Well done.
enjoy it.
Well, you
Well,
have
well done. Well done. Go on, Neil. Sorry.
I've watched Shadow numerous times because it's one of the episodes that I had to watch when I was writing stuff, because in my Vindictus stuff is a character that's got a shadow addiction. So yeah, I've watched it a number of times.
Dave, put your hand up.
Yes, can I suggest for our viewers and our listeners, can anybody comment on why I'm Orson Welles this week?
I've been trying to think about this all hour, and I haven't got it.
Populous. Why am I Orson?
Is it because you're starting to look like him?
That was my first thought too, Steve.
Look, Phil Collins in his later years.
I love it when we start getting into these kind of spats when some people listen to this as a podcast and don't watch it.
Orson Welles voiced a character called the Shadow.
Good lad.
Whoa, Neil, get you.
Scores all round.
For our viewers and listeners, I was going to make this a feature every week
Oh,
where
sorry.
the listeners and viewers could,
Well,
But you're right. Orson Welles played on the radio in the 1930s. The Shadow.
Shadow.
Who knows what evil lurks in the minds of men? Shadow knows.
That's brilliant.
Well done to Lynn. She has been in the hot seat this week. We're going to be handing over to somebody else in November. We're going to do 2 in November, dates to be confirmed. But well done, Lynn. Did you enjoy it?
I did, actually. Thank you, Steve. Yeah, whether everyone else did is a different matter, but I enjoyed it. And
You're fired, Steve.
Brilliant.
look forward to the next one. I don't know who has the joy of Weapon, but Dave, you'll have plenty of material for next week.
Certainly will. Certainly will. We will be back in November. We'll have 2 episodes in November, so we will negotiate that in our usual way. But thanks everybody for tuning in. Over 100 watching live tonight, so thank you as always. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel if you can. Big thanks to Nick, to Neil, to Orson Welles and to Lynn. Take care. See you all soon. Bye-bye.
Hey guys.
Bye, everyone.
Cheers.
The word, switch the bracelet on the word, the word, switch the bracelet on the word, the word, switch the bracelet on the word,